During this time of year, of course, we talk about FFA and the Kansas FFA convention. The state convention is underway in Manhattan, and that is our focus on today's Ag Issues program. And we're pleased to be joined on the program today by the president of the Kansas FFA, Logan Elliott, who will be a sophomore at Kansas State University, but he represents Riverton FFA. And also joining us is Kansas FFA reporter J.W. Wells, representing Sedan FFA, and he will also be a sophomore at Kansas State University. Logan and JW, I appreciate you joining us.
Well, thanks for having us.
Let's get right to it. You know, COVID-19 pandemic, you guys coming to the end of your term as officers. Logan, I'll start with you. How do you describe the last 3 months for what you, your officer team, and for all FFA members have been going through?
Well, that's a pretty big question, and I'm guessing if you ask just about anybody at this point to describe the last 3 months, they'd be at a little bit of a loss for words. I'm very proud of a lot of the things that we've accomplished, and so proud of my teammates and the countless volunteers and state staff that we have that have helped pull some really incredible pieces together. But when we found out that our spring break was going to be extended and then a little bit more permanently extended as the rest of the semester went to an online format. It was an experience that I don't think anybody could have prepared for that. But we took it somewhat in stride and took some time to kind of wrap our heads around what had happened and changed in our own lives. And then we all, I believe that we really pulled it together and with a renewed vigor went at how can we continue to accomplish the goals that we set as state officers, newly elected almost a year ago, and how can we continue moving forward and making that impact to members across the state?
You know, JW, one of the things to look at is your best friend now is Zoom. Well, it's everybody's best friend in many aspects. But I'm sure there were some long conversations as you were trying to sort all through this and trying to figure out, okay, what do we need to do now?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you're very correct. Zoom is very much so my best friend now. Before all of the coronavirus, I had never heard of Zoom, and now I use it almost on a daily basis, and it is in my bookmarks bar on Google Chrome. But definitely in March, whenever everything started to either get canceled, postponed, definitely a lot of uncertainty. And a frequent topic of every single Zoom call that Logan and I would be on is not only, well, what should we do or what are we going to do, but rather it's, well, what does tomorrow hold in store? What does next week, next month have? Because at that time, everything was so uncertain that we really couldn't grasp the concept of, okay, next week we may not be able to even get outside of the state, or next month everything may be reopened. So I definitely can say that in the very first Zoom calls that I was starting to just try to get experience or trying to learn how Zoom worked, a lot of the conversations was not only just trying to get convention not planned, but just trying to get a feel for it and what the current state is, but also trying to check in with all of our teammates, people who have volunteered for convention, just also making sure that we're all on the same page moving forward regardless of whatever happens to state convention.
You know, and for both of you, JW, I'll go back to you on this. Probably the disappointing thing, but very understandable, is your chance to travel and go see all these FFA chapters, really talk to the individual members out there. And not that I say it, you got deprived of the chance, but that opportunity was taken away because somewhat of the COVID-19 pandemic, although I'm sure you've done a lot via video to be able to get your message out.
Yeah, of course. As whenever we were talking before, I was definitely looking forward to traveling all throughout Kansas in the spring, giving keynote speeches and just talking to individual FFA members. But really, the biggest takeaway for me during this time is really just how to adapt to any situation I'm in. Throughout the past year, being a freshman at K-State, it was just adapting from high school, but also to college, moving from home to now living somewhere I had never lived before. And now it's just kind of reinventing the wheel almost on how to adapt to any situation at possible. And so fortunately, because of Zoom, Zoom, GroupMe, and just the internet in general, I was able to still directly talk to FFA members with my district officer team. At the beginning of the year, state officer is assigned a district officer team as like a buddy system. Throughout with Zoom and actual mail, I was able to keep in touch and still motivate and inspire other FFA members, such as my district officer teams, as well as other chapters that I still couldn't go to deliver a keynote address, which in my opinion, this was actually a lot more impactful, because you may remember a keynote at a certain time in a certain place, but I know for me, I'll always remember a handwritten letter that I received from somebody else, a lot more intentional.
You know, it's funny, Logan, in that you get to know a lot of friends, and I'm sure you have a ton of friends even before you became president as FFA members. But your vice president, Abby Goins from Labette County, is someone you've known a long time. And so that has to be great interaction between you and Abby and really, too, the rest of the officer team to be able to communicate, but really open up in that aspect, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have been very blessed to have a group that we definitely didn't all know each other when we were elected. But I've known Abby for a while. JW and I served on a district officer team together. And I think all of us had at least in some way, shape, or form interacted on some level before we were elected to our positions. And the state officer year of service provides so many opportunities for us to really be vulnerable with each other and connect in a way that when times get tough, we feel really comfortable talking with each other, and asking for support and help in times of need has never been an option. So, or has always been an option. And when we got into this time and we really started thinking about, you know, what's the rest of our year of service together going to look like? We were able to take great comfort in each other that we've all been through some trying experiences, I would say, throughout our year of service as we have prepared for different opportunities. It's just been an incredible blessing that when times got a little bit tough, there's always someone on the team that we feel we can reach out and talk to and try and figure out what's going on and figure out how we can move forward to continue our own personal growth and continue providing those experiences for those around us.
We're joined on the Ag Issues program this morning by Logan Elliott, who represents Riverton FFA. He serves as president this year. He actually is going to be ending his term at the end of the convention. And we're also joined by J.W. Wells, representing Sedan FFA. He is the Kansas FFA reporter, and they are both soon will be sophomores at Kansas State University. Now, we have to focus in on the convention, the 92nd annual convention. This obviously is different as well because of the fact that it is a virtual convention this year. Very much different because having that many FFA members, I'm sure for both of you, and Logan, I'll start with you, it has to seem very much different knowing that you're going to give your address later today as far as the president's address, but you're just going to be looking at a camera and not all the FFA members.
Yeah, and that's something that we've definitely talked about as we've gone through the process of preparing for a virtual convention. Is typically we're in McCain Auditorium with over 1,000 members and a ton of energy to play off of. So there's been several conversations about really thinking more about, you know, not necessarily the fact that there's not the people there, but that we really want to continue to bring that energy and that purpose as we provide our retiring addresses and remarks, so that we may not be looking at a sea of people in McCain Auditorium, but through this new virtual format that we have the opportunity to use, we've really been able to maybe reach a lot of members that wouldn't have sat in McCain Auditorium and may not have seen it otherwise. And it's certainly, like you said, a different kind of experience, but one that I think, in a way, we're very grateful to have that opportunity to maybe reach those members that we wouldn't have otherwise.
Now, JW, you had the chance already to give your address to close out your term. I really enjoyed it, talking about a measure of a life well led.
Yes. As I said in my address, my Aunt Loretta is someone who is very near and dear to my heart. And in fact, I didn't mention it in my address, but that question right there, what is the measure of a life well lived? Whenever I started having very in-depth conversations with her, she would pretty much ask me that every time we asked. And little did I know, but she was using that to really scope out the values in my heart, which was something I talked about very in depth on my speech. Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely got a little teary-eyed whenever I was watching it with all of my friends and family, in a safe social distancing way, of course. Definitely a lot of, I'd like to say my mom was cutting onions at that time.
Exactly. Logan Elliott, president of Kansas FFA, and J.W. Wells, Kansas FFA reporter, are joining us on the Ag Issues program here on 580 WIBW. As we mentioned, this is the end of the convention Friday. You've had 2 other days of the convention as well. Logan, talk about some of the highlights that we have seen in the convention this year.
Well, we may be in a more condensed virtual format, but that does not mean that we were lacking in any opportunities. And premiering live at all of those times provided on our schedules, on our Facebook page, Instagram page, and our YouTube, can be found on our YouTube channel. There's still been some really cool opportunities. We were very excited to learn that we had 2 national officers coming a few weeks ago, and our national president, Colson McCoy, and our national Eastern region vice president, Tess Siebel, both provided keynotes and workshops this week. And those keynotes, I guess Tess's will be provided later today, but those can be found on all of our pages, as well as the recognition of members that we so wanted to focus on when we were trying to figure out what this convention would look like. There was a survey sent out asking members, advisors, and supporters what they wanted to see in convention. And the main focus, just as we hoped, was to focus on the recognition of members. So we're still recognizing the amazing accomplishments of chapters and members throughout the state through our proficiencies and our national chapter awards, as well as recognizing those retiring advisors who have dedicated their careers to our year of service. And we hope to really finish strong in this last leg of our convention week with our final couple of sessions as we recognize State FFA degree recipients and a few more very well-deserving people in that final session.
JW, can you talk about having such great leaders, you guys as the officer team, but really those who advise you? Kurt Dillon, who's going to be giving the State of the State remarks later today, Mary Kane, and Beth Gaines. It's, I know all 3 of them, but you guys get to know them a lot more during your year an officer team. Can you describe what they mean to Kansas FFA?
Of course. As you were describing them, listing off the names, the immediate first thing that comes to mind is servant leadership. Every single Mr. Dillon, Miss Kane, Miss Gaines, every single one of them leads by example. They always hold the interests of the association or the foundation by their heart, and they truly, really do have a passion for FFA, agricultural education, the 3-component model, school-based agricultural education. They truly have a passion and an interest in every single one of those. And a quick comment I'll add here. I've always grown up around FFA. My father was actually my FFA advisor. And especially growing up with Mr. Dillon and Miss Kane, really kind of built up kind of a legacy, kind of like oh wow, these guys are in the major leagues, And so whenever I finally got the opportunity to serve on the state level working beside them, truly having in-depth conversations about not only where agricultural education and FFA has been, but also where it may go to in the future through through all of the hard work we've ever done. Truly, it's been one of, I won't speak for Logan, but it's been one of my favorite parts of state office. Truly just recognizing the continuity of leadership, and especially working alongside Ms. Gaines, who keeps insisting for me to call her Beth. All of the road, especially to National FFA Convention. She handed me the aux cord, I believe, once, never gave it to me ever again. But it's just little moments like that that really make any experience with that power trio, honestly, makes it worth it.
One question I have, because obviously you got to get through today, the end of the State FFA convention. Do we know the status right now of the National FFA convention, where that stands? And I'll plead ignorance here, not knowing 100%. Is that still in discussion or still in play that that's going to take place?
So I can't say everything with 100% certainty, in fact, because I've not been involved in a lot of those conversations. But we do know that they are currently planning or aiming to have an in-person convention like we normally would in Indianapolis. And some of those pieces might look different, and you can't predict the future, but there are, just as we're so grateful and blessed to have incredible hardworking people here at the Kansas state level, with some really passionate people working at National FFA, that competitions are going to look different this year and may transition a little bit to next year. But they're still going to do their darndest to try and put together those pieces and opportunities for students. Normally 70,000 Blue Jackets gather in Indianapolis, and there's no doubt in my mind that we're going to see a great number of Blue Jackets gather in some way, shape, or form to celebrate the amazing year of accomplishments and keep our organization moving onward and upward as we pursue our goal of creating leaders that are going to change the world.
Gentlemen, as we end this program, I'll ask you a final question. And JW, I'm going to start with you.
Of course.
When you look back at this year and think about everything that has happened, everything that you've had to go through, your officer team and all FFA members have had to go to, is there one memory that may stand out above all others as you end your officer term?
There's definitely a lot of different answers I can give to this, especially when you would have asked me this question along my year of service. If you would have asked me that about the first week of March, I would have said my favorite memory would have been traveling around National FFA Week. It would be putting a lot of hours on the road in a cramped blue diesel pickup, driving all the way from Northeast Kansas to Southeast and to South Central, all the way back up to Northeast and North Central. Definitely interacting with those FFA members, facilitating with amazing teammates along the way. That would have been my answer then. But here and now, with a global pandemic, with coronavirus, honestly, and it's a little bit of not a big hoorah, but rather my favorite memory, the memory that stands out to me, is rather a particular Zoom call that after everything started getting canceled. I remember the NBA, MLB, K-State classes, KU, Oklahoma State, everyone was either postponing or canceling. And it was a particular Zoom call with my officer team. And simply put, instead of just solely focusing our conversation on what are we going to do, it was rather we were all just checking in with each other. We were all simply asking each other where we were at, how we were feeling. We were vulnerable. And Logan spoke to it earlier, but the ability of having teammates that I legitimately consider to be family, that is the whole concept in itself, was, as well as that memory, is something I'm always going to hold true.
And Logan, you get the final word. Is there a memory that stands out above all others?
I guess I haven't been on this earth as long as some people, but I like to think I've had quite a few experiences, and I find it very difficult to pick out one singular memory. And we've had opportunities to travel the state, the country, and we were very blessed to have the opportunity to travel internationally this year. And throughout all those travels and all those opportunities, I think I'll really look back on this year and appreciate every moment that we were able to spend with each other, with our state staff, our volunteers, and members in any capacity, where we were able to have meaningful conversations and make connections. Because time's going to pass, but those feelings are still going to be there. And I feel so incredibly grateful that we've had this experience and had the chance to meet some truly amazing people in all walks and forms of life. I think that's what I'm really going to look back on and remember.
One thing I would be remiss with not mentioning, we mentioned Abby Goins, who is the vice president this year. Elizabeth Wright from Blue Valley is the secretary. Lucas Sebesta of Ellsworth is the treasurer. And Mason Prester of Wilson FFA is the sentinel this year. But Logan and JW, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today, and congratulations on your year, and we make it a great final day here at the 92nd Annual Convention.
Well, thank you very much for having us, and we'll do our best.
Of course.
That is Logan Elliott, president of Kansas FFA, and JW Wells, who serves as the reporter for Kansas FFA. This has been Ag Issues here on 580 WIBW. Stay with us. When we come back, we'll get an update on the news headlines, and we'll check the weather forecast that comes up next.